Good afternoon and welcome everybody to Moneyline MMA coverage, UFC Vegas 104. Definitely a swift drop down in overall talent and overall fights, star power here specifically from UFC 313 down to UFC Vegas 104 here. But nonetheless, we are here ready to make our picks and potential bets for this card. Of course, last weekend we had UFC 313 in which Magomed Ankalaev became the new light heavyweight champion. I know Jose and I were watching these fights separately, but man, honestly, it's really hard with that fight. I see the side of the people that think Pereira should have won. See the side of people that think Magomed should have won. If you look, specifically at the striking, Magomed wins. But it just didn't feel like he was doing a whole lot. And he goes out after the fight and says that he felt Pereira was kind of like ducking in a sense, like not willing to get in the firefights with him. And honestly, I kind of agree to as somewhat of a like, especially for as someone who had picked Pereira. He's my 5 weight. I had tons of confidence in Pereira going into this fight, but it's unfortunate to see because he was backing up and he was like honestly getting taken advantage of in some of the like close swing spots where Magomed was the one actually landing the 1-2, and Alex maybe hit a jab at best. So I think Magomed for sure wins the fight. Even rewatching it, I know he didn't land any takedowns, but who cares? He was the one kind of pushing the gas more than Pereira. I kept thinking, especially as the fourth and fifth round came through, I was thinking, man, Pereira's got to step on the gas here at some point, right, and just let it loose. But he didn't, and it's just interesting, man. It almost kind of reminds me of what it's still Alex Pereira, but going back to when he was middleweight against Izzy, it kind of feels like that's what happened when he beat Izzy. At least the time that he didn't knock Izzy out, it was like a technical knockout, and Izzy just like stood there and like was getting hit, and he was like, whatever. Like it wasn't that Magomed was pressuring him that bad, but of course the ref didn't have to stop it. But you know what I'm saying? It just felt like where's the retaliation? Like Pereira, your strength is retaliation and strikes, and I don't know if Pereira's just so used to being the aggressor that he didn't counter Magomed. Like he just didn't have the experience and the ability to do good counter striking. But that would have served him well against Magomed. I really think he still could have knocked him out. We're talking rematch potentially. Man, I don't know what to say if that rematch happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of skimmed quick through the. I didn't stay up late and never followed up yet on the post conference, but I think Magomed said that he's willing to give Alex for a rematch, and if that's the case, I honestly do see the UFC doing that rematch right away because, uh, I mean, it was a close fight, and it did I think come down to that fifth round, and I could have seen it either way. To be honest, I was worried it was going to go to Magomed because obviously I chose Alex Pereira, but I think like you said, I think he just needed to be a little more aggressive. It seemed like he was like, uh, yeah, he's just kind of just waiting and just trying to set something up and just looking for an opening, kind of like how he did against Khalil Roundtree, and even Izzy when when he finished him, but it just never really came because Ankalaev was just it was just how he applied his game. But I will say I was impressed with Pereira's wrestling defense, though, especially against the cage, especially. That's something I think we knew, like, going in, like, him working with Glover Teixeira, like, it's not going to be an easy takedown. Like, Uncle Ive's really going to work for it. And honestly, I think Alex Pereira did a lot better than expected. So I think, like, in the rematch, like, I can see it again going either guy. Like, it'd be like a 50-50 coin toss for me if they do a rematch.
Yeah, man, I would like to see Pereira with more urgency. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned it was kind of potentially 2-2 going into the fifth round. And if so, I still feel that's a little generous to Pereira. But if so, I would love to see more out of Pereira then. It's just so disappointing. Magomed landed more shots in the fifth round than Pereira even attempted. That's just so disappointing. How does a champ finish off that slow, man? It'd be one thing if Pereira was like, if the shots he landed were so hard that like Magomed was bleeding all over the place. He had a broken nose, right? like then it would be one thing. But there was like barely any damage. You could barely tell Magomed fought. It was like, what the heck, man? How did you just fight Alex Pereira for 25 minutes, huh? So, yeah, what you said is it's correct in that it's disappointing because we were right about Pereira's takedown defense. He was great. He didn't get taken down once, and it was like 9 or 10 attempts, but it just wasn't like everything from there wasn't what I was expecting Pereira to do. It was like the UFC was like, "Hey Pereira, we'll still pay you your winning money if you lose," and he was like, "Oh fuck it, I'm still getting paid the same." Like I don't know, like what other reason did he just like did he gas out? Like what other reason do we have to have seen him do so little in the fifth round? Just disappointing. Outside of that though, boy, happy to see Gaethje, man. Wow, happy to see Gaethje. I know you had Fiziev on your card. I had Gaethje as a one weight, so I wasn't as confident, but I'm happy I did it, man. Gaethje, we get what we get out of Justin Gaethje, and if you're gonna beat him, you have to match it or be crazier. In this case, it wasn't good enough. Fiziev lands a couple takedowns, but in the end gets outfought, outboxed. Justin Gaethje lands the knockdown of the two. That was a great fight. Got one of the fight of the night bonuses. Um, Overall, though, it was a tough one. The other big win that we got here was my three weight in Mauricio Ruffy. I'm almost disappointed, of course, now with hindsight that I didn't make him even higher weight, and I guess that was me just giving a little respect to King Green, right? I love Bobby Green. I love what he's about. I love what he brings to the octagon, but we can't. We just got to realize, Jose, man, when there's talent like Mauricio Ruffy coming in, we just can't deny it, man. We just can't. And the signs were there. He's with the Fighting Nerds, right? And Kyle Bahayo said during the week, I was watching the UFC Embedded. He said, and I quote, "Mauricio Ruffy is the most talented person I've walked into another gym and witnessed fighting." Kyle Bahayo said that. Now he might be glazing a little bit, right? Maybe he's glazing a little bit. The fact that he was going to say that though was crazy. I was like, and then in the video, Ruffy's doing like all these like side flips, back flips, spin kicks. He's like a ninja, dude. He's crazy. He's jumping left, right, up and down. And I mean, it should have been obvious that he was gonna do some crazy spinning kick to knock out Bobby Green. Wow, is all I have to say, man. Watch out for Mauricio Ruffy. That's not the less you're gonna see of him. Moving forward, though, let's stop the BS and start discussing the fights here for UFC Vegas 104. Of course, this is going to be, as the name states, in Vegas with the normal, actually afternoon card time. I almost said normal, but it will be the afternoon card time. Prelims starting at noon Central Time. This card will be headlined by Marvin Vettori and Roman Dolidze, the middleweight bout. And as anyone who is new here will need to learn that we do a 5-weight pick system in which the 5-weight is the most confident, 1-weight is the least confident. Jose make our picks individually of each other and then confer just before the recording starts here, just before we go live, just to know what order we're going in, because we always go with the locks first, aka the 5-weight picks. Those 5 fights, of course, are picked of the 13 available fights on UFC Vegas 104. So that said, we're not going to wait any further to get to my 5-weight. And my 5-weight for Saturday afternoon is for back-to-back weeks going to lie in the main event. I'm not sure this has ever happened in the show history of Moneyline MMA, and the fact that I'm going back-to-back with the main event 5-weight pick. But this time, I'm confident, man. I got to back up Alex Pereira with something, and this something I'm pretty confident in, and that is Roman Dolidze to beat Marvin Vettori. This is a bit of a unique pick, I guess you could say, in the sense that if we go strictly by favorites, right? Marvin Vettori is a minus 156 favorite, and Roman Dolidze is a plus 122 dog. So I'm looking at a main event underdog at a 5-weight pick, and I'm super excited for this one. Roman Dolidze is a dog, and of course, I mean, that's like no pundit, right? Pun intended to say that I was talking about his odds. He is an underdog, but I also mean that he is a dog in the fact that he has never been finished in a fight. If he loses a fight, it's by decision. Marvin Vettori is also the similar. Neither of these guys have been finished, right? But Marvin Vettori has been having some issues, right? Marvin Vettori has not stepped in the UFC octagon since 2023. June of 2023, that is. So it's going to be almost 2 full calendar years before since he has stepped in the octagon, in which he lost against Jared Cannonier Not a bad loss to take at all. And that was right after he had beaten Roman Dolidze. So this is, of course, the second bout between the two. I just don't. This is very confident in me because first of all, I heard that Marvin Vettori has a shoulder injury. Then he's only fighting because he needs some money. Now that could be crazy. That could be complete false, right? Because I don't have a very I don't have a high ranking source, right, to be able to corroborate that. But if it's true, that's not looking good for Mr. Marvin Vettori. And honestly, I tend to believe it because he hasn't fought since 2023. Dude needs some money. I mean, maybe he's working at Pick and Save. Maybe he's checking people out at the bank. But I feel like Marvin Vettori needs some money, and I think he's first accepting this fight because he needs the money. But that's why he's also not willing to maybe disclose an injury if he thinks he can fight through it. I'm not saying this shoulder injury is like some sort of torn labrum, right? That's, of course not. But it could be a tweak, right? It could be something very minimal that's going to be in the back of his mind during this fight. And that's all it needs to be because Roman Dolidze is already tough enough to beat. Roman Dolidze is already coming off 2 wins against Kevin Holland and Anthony Smith. Yeah, I get Anthony Smith's kind of old, but we already know he's still a tough fighter to beat. So after that he lost to Imavov, who's now looking to be a title contender in the middleweight division. So I don't know, man. Roman Dolidze to me is the dog here in this fight. He's been fighting more recently. He's been more active. I like the fact that he beat Kevin Holland a few months ago. And Marvin Vettori to me is just a huge question mark health wise. And the fact that it's been 2 years, man, too long to get plus 122. So what do you think, Jose?
Yeah, Nick. So when I was looking at this fight, I was gonna side with Roman Dolidze, and as you mentioned, like because Marvin Vettori has just been out because of his injury, did not compete at all in 2024. For me, I definitely was leaning towards Roman Dolidze just because of him just being more active and just him coming off the 2 wins. But ultimately, I ended up going with Marvin Vettori, and I even went as far as made him my 5 weight actually. And he was interchangeable. He was originally my 4 weight, but as before this, we discussed I moved him to my 5 weight last minute, and I just feel really good because honestly, like even though he has been out for a bit, I think he's gonna come back better than ever. He did have that injury, but again, an entire over a year off, like that, I think is just more than enough time. He's gonna come back. He's only 31 years old, and compared to Roman Dolidze is 36. So Marvin Vettori is still at a good at a good age for where he's at in his career, and he hasn't really been on a losing streak at all. To be honest, thus far in his career, he's been on win loss, and he's lost to Israel Adesanya, Robert Whitaker, and Jared Cannonier. Two like Israel Adesanya, Robert Whitaker are two of the best to ever do it at middleweight. And Jared Cannonier, as we saw, he just came off a win over RoboCop, who for a moment was looking like he could be a problem in the middleweight division as well. And so losing to those dudes, especially going to decision as well, not being finished by those dudes, like it's just shows just exactly how tough Marvin Vettori is. So if Roman Dolidze gets this win, he has. I think he's just gonna have to be extremely. We'll have to just completely out dominate like Marvin Vettori in every aspect of the game, and I don't think he'll finish Marvin Vettori. It would have to come down to decision. But Marvin Vettori, I just think like he's just got a lot left in the tank, and I'm not gonna say he's gonna submit Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze has never been submitted, but that grappling aspect is some of the strong suits of Marvin Vettori. But ultimately, it is going to come down to decision is the best way I think this fight's going to come down to either or. But I think it's just going to be Marvin Vettori just because he does have that win over Roman Dolidze, which came unanimously. And of course, that was already a couple years ago. But it's still a fairly recent, Roman Dolidze is a fairly recent opponent for Marvin Vettori. And so I'm he hasn't fought anyone really since then. So I'm sure he can remember a lot of what he did right and wrong in that camp and how the fight fell. And I'm sure he's paid attention to the division. So he's seen Roman Dolidze. And that being said, this one I'm going with Marvin Vettori because he's only 31 years old. He still has the potential to compete for the title again. I think one day. I think at least still deserves to be in the top 5 at least. And where I give it to in just on the striking too, he throws a high volume of strikes and just presses forward, just can be like a bull. and like just push for almost like a minier version of Brock Lesnar to some degree. So as long as and he can't be like I think Marvin Vettori will clip him in those moments, but he definitely won't put Marvin Vettori out. He won't sleep him, and I definitely don't think he'll submit him. So that being said, long story short, I'm actually gonna go the opposite end and go with Marvin Vettori. I think he's gonna win this just via unanimous decision, and he is my 5 weight.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, that's the right way to go. If you do pick Vittori, going by decision, I mean, honestly, either one of these guys, because there's a guy who obviously vehemently disagrees, got a 5 weight on the opposite fighter. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a finished situation. I do think both of these guys respect each other a lot, and both of them have a decent amount on the line here. I don't think Vittori can really accept going off such a long layoff and taking a loss here. And Dolidze is really trying to work himself back into title contention because he was starting to get there before his first fight against Vettori on a 4-fight win streak. And I think some of that is the motivation that I like from Dolidze's side too, is that he's on a 2-fight roll now. I can't really call it a streak until it's 3, and I think he knows that he has to avenge this in order to really get that true look at potentially getting a championship opportunity in the future. So I think there's a lot of motivation on Dolidze's side. And we'll see. We'll see. I do have a lot of respect for Vettori. I think he's a tough dude, and honestly, one of the hardest dudes to get put out. So I think either way, you're safe to go over 2.5 rounds. There's no doubt the line will be 2.5 rounds. If it's not, that's crazy. It'll be like over 1.5 rounds at like minus 800. You know what I'm saying? That is something crazy. But over 2.5 rounds seems to be pretty safe. That might be one thing Jose and I can agree on, even though we disagree on the overall outcome. What do you think, Jose? You like that over 2.5?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I would say either or who you go with, just you cannot, I would just stay away.
It's probably
yeah, I would go with decision. Fight. Yeah, I would stay away from submissions in this one, even though Marvin Vettori, both of these guys actually are fairly really good grapplers and got a good amount of wins in that department on their hands, but. That being said, I just don't see any of these guys finishing each other out. They got the jaws. Definitely decision. And I honestly don't even know it'll be split decision. I just think one is gonna dominate. It's gonna be unanimous. And I obviously personally lean towards Marvin Vettori, so I think it's gonna be like straight up a unanimous decision win for whoever, I guess.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. All right. Well, that said, that's both our 5 weights, so we'll go on to your 4 weight then.
Yeah, so for my 4 weight, this is going to be the featherweight bout between Songwoo Choi and Kevin Vallejos. Right now, Choi is the betting underdog at plus 330, while Vallejos is the betting favorite at minus 480. He is a big favorite here, and he is coming off a win off Dana White's Contender Series. So I think in this one, I'm going for Vallejos as well. And not obviously not because of the betting odds and how big of a favorite he is. But mostly just because he is a straight up finisher. Out of his 14 wins, he has 10 via KO/TKO and 2 submission wins, and he's only gone to decision twice. And so I'm really betting more against Woo Choi because he's just not that good. I mean, he's only won 1 out of his last 5 fights, and he's just been losing in almost every possible way, getting knocked out in the first round, getting submitted, and he's shown to not have a chin either. Like, and out of his 7 losses, 3 of them do come via KO/TKO, and he's also been submitted twice. So this one's a good one for Kevin Vallejos, for him to just make an impression in the UFC, just coming in, because it was his second attempt off Dana White's Contender Series. He did lose. His only loss thus far on his record comes by decision to Gene Silva, who we know is going to fight Bryce Mitchell next, and he's out of the we were just talking about the fighting nerds too, and he's just comes out of a great camp, and so losing decision to him, and that being the only loss is that's I don't frown upon that at all or look down about it, because Gene Silva is a beast, and makes sense that he probably couldn't finish him, but Woo Choi is someone I definitely believe Vejos can finish. Like just the fact that he went against Gene Silva already shows that he's already gone against better competition than Woo Choi. So that being said, like I think this is a good fight, a good matchup for Vallejos, and I definitely think he's going to get the win on this. He I don't even know what next one is my 4-weight. That being said, he is my 4-weight regardless. Obviously, so but that being said, like yeah, like it's so hard for me because I think he's actually going to dominate in this one so much that I can't even pick one. Whether he's going to win by knockout, submission, or decision, and that's even with Wu Choi having like I think a 7.5 reach advantage over Vegas, and so and Wu Choi does he's got phenomenal striking, so that size and reach advantage is the only thing that I think is going to give Vejos possible problems. But other than that, I just think overall he is a better fighter, so he is my 4-weight. What are your thoughts on this one, Nick?
Man, so you make some great points, honestly, and we're gonna fully agree here on Kem Vallejos. After disagreement there on our 5 weights, I got him as my 3-weight, so that'll be probably the lock of the week here. Just unless maybe 4 and a 3-weight match up again the other way around. But that said, man, Vallejos seems to be a dog. I usually am really hesitant to, especially as a 3-weight or higher, like this guy's UFC debut, man. Usually the debuts you want to stay away from, but I'm with you that this is also kind of a knock against Choi. Like, I've obviously a lot of respect for him. He could kick my butt, but that this is an octagon against professional fighters, and Choi just doesn't seem to really be able to fit in with a lot of these UFC caliber guys. He's only won one fight in his last 4, and it was against Yarno Aarons, another guy who's debatably not a UFC guy either. Julian Arosa. I guess he did beat Yusuf Zalal, but we're starting to get back into the useless, 4 years ago plus territory. And Vallejos, man, you said it best. He finishes guys. He's only not been able to finish Gene Silva, and obviously Gene Silva's looking back is a tough guy to fight. Now I will say, Gene Silva is just as inexperienced as him, so I don't believe I don't believe Ken Vallejos is necessarily a top 15 guy in this division by any means, but neither is Sing Woo Choi. He's not even close. I think Vallejos brings way more power and potential to finish than Choi, and with that said, I like him a lot as my 3-weight.
All right, yeah. So this may be our lock of the week, but this is definitely a strong one. We both agree on. He's my 5-weight, and he being your 3-weight.
Sounds good, man. So with that said, we'll go on to my 4-weight. My 4-weight of Saturday afternoon. Honestly, it's hard to say what some of the orders here are going to be if this fight's on the main event. If it's not on the main event, I'm not exactly 100% sure. I didn't really pick the fights anyways based on main event or not, but I always like to at least try and mention when they are in the card. This one I believe is on the main card. It might be towards the beginning of the main card. It seems like Damon Blackshear versus Cody Gibson. Damon Blackshear. This is essentially a guy that's got a lot of like Damon Blackshear's kind of crazy, man. 10 submission wins in his 15 UFC wins in general. Damon Blackshear just pushes a pressure, and he's honestly really good at it. And in a lot of cases, he either gets a finish or gets finished. Now, don't get me wrong, he's got a couple decision wins and losses. It's not forever, but Damon Blackshear's goal is very clear, right? He wants to finish you by choking you out. He wants to get you in some sort of finish, like he put Jose Johnson in the twister. You know what I'm saying? He wants to do something. And Cody Gibson could very well be a culprit here. Cody Gibson has been in the bad spots in the past by getting guillotine choked multiple times, actually. Now, it's been a while, but a lot of his UFC opponents haven't been the style to go and try and get finishes on the ground. So that said, I like Damon Blackshear here, if I haven't made that clear enough. Damon Blackshear is my 4-weight. He's a pretty decent favorite as well, for a good reason. Minus 500. Cody Gibson plus 340. I just don't see a lot in Cody Gibson. He's lost to some average fighters. He's beat some bad fighters. And honestly, I'm not saying that Blackshear has beaten anyone super impressive. He went to a draw with Yusuf Zalal, which I can at least respect because that was his UFC debut. that's a tough debut, man. So yeah, that said, I'm looking to take Damon Blackshear as a confident 4-weight.
Yeah, so for this one, Nick, I actually do not have a weight on it, but I do like your pick with Blackshear because as you mentioned, he's got youth on his side, and I do like the pick of, like I do like if he wins, it's probably most likely going to be by submission. Yeah, he has 10 submissions on his record, and that's the only, like, besides decision, that's the only other way Cody Gibson's been finished. So yeah, and so yeah, I like it. Like it was just tough, just because I didn't really know where Blackshear stands, really, like how good he is, because just like looking at his names, like that Yusuf Zalal is probably like the best name I see on there, and going to draw with him is impressive. But he has had some other losses in there as well. And Cody Gibson, on the other hand, the names he's lost to and fought to is just crazy. Like, he even fought Ray Borg, who used to be in John Dutson. They both used to be in the UFC, and he's beaten one and lost the other. So it was really hard for me to really like assess and kind of see where both guys fall, and like who I would think would beat each other, and then work from there. Like, it was just a tough one for me. But after hearing you explain a little more, and like looking into it, like just seeing Blackshear being good with the submissions, and just the youth that he has on his side as well. If I were to make a pick, it would definitely be Blackshear, and I would even say by submission. So I don't have a weight on it, but I do agree with Blackshear.
Sounds good, man. Yeah. So that said, looks like Blackshear will not necessarily be an MMA lock of the week here, but we have some good confidence that he can get the job done against Cody Gibson as a decent favorite. So with that said, we can move on then to Jose's. I believe that'll be the 3-weight.
Yes, so for my 3-weight, this is going to be the welterweight bout between Chidi Njokuani and Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. And right now, dos Santos is the betting favorite at -210, while Chidi Njokuani is the betting underdog at +162. I like Chidi. And that being said, I'm going with Chidi, the underdog. I'm surprised that he was. I was a little surprised he was the underdog in this one. But I'm gonna stand by and go with Chidi. He is a finisher. He hasn't been getting the finish wins, like and he hasn't gotten one in a while. But when he's on and he's finishing dudes, it's just early, really early in the first round. I think I almost always sided with Chidi, like almost in all his fights, even when he's lost. I've always been a Chidi Njokuani guy, and just because he's had a lot of experience prior to the UFC, with Bellator as well, and he's already seen and gotten a good mixture of names, like even in Bellator, like John Salter and Rafael Carvalho, so and Melvin Gillard back in the day, and Andre Fajo. So he's already seen Max Griffin. Like, he's seen some names already, way before like where he is right now. And he would have just been some fights away to really being like a true threat in this division. But he is getting older. He's 36. And with that being said, I like him a lot compared to Dos Santos as well, just because Dos Santos has a lot of experience, a lot of good experience as well. But he is the older guy in this one, and but he is coming off a decision, a TKO off this one, most recently. So he's still got some in the tank, but I'm still siding with a slightly younger Chidi Njokuani, and I would even say, like, I would just say decision in this one, only because Dos Santos, he hasn't really been put out. Like, he's hard to get put out, to be honest. Out of his 8 losses, he's only been knocked out once and lost by submission twice. Rest is by decision. The way I see this is going to be Chidi Njokuani dominating more on the feet. I think it's just going to be, he's going to be landing a little bit more strikes on the feet, and when it comes down to it too, he also has a 7-inch reach advantage, which is huge. I think just on the feet, Chidi Njokuani is just gonna add up the strikes, and ultimately, win by decision is the best way I see it. So this one, I like Chidi Njokuani. I think this is just a good matchup for him. I think this is a good matchup for him. Sorry, I think there's like a fire alarm going on in my apartment right now, so I don't know if you guys can hear that.
Oh, I can hear that. Yeah, I was about to ask you what that is.
So yeah, it's not like in my actual unit; it's like in my building. So I'm sorry about that, but like,
Someone's
unfortunately,
doing too much of the ganja or something.
But
Shutting the fire alarm off, man. Chill.
hopefully it's like not someone playing a prank or something. Hopefully it's not. It shouldn't be a real fire us. So I guess we'll find out. But that being said, I got Chidi Njokuani. He is my 3-weight. I think he's gonna win this one by decision. What are your thoughts on this one, Nick?
Ooh, so we're gonna agree again. I know we had that first disagreement. We're gonna agree again here. I like Cheaty, and I'll be honest. This is kind of opposite of how it was for you and Marvin Vittori, where you said you were initially on Dolidze, went to Vittori. I was initially on Elizeu Zaleski, but I ended up moving to Cheaty, and honestly, I'm sitting here wondering like. Zaleski, like I like Zaleski. I've seen some of his impressive, usually striking showcases that he has, in which he's just superior on the feet. But for him to be a minus 210 favorite here seems a bit much. Cheaty at plus 162, I feel like, wow, is that great value. If we look statistically, I mean, both these guys have a good handful of UFC fights. So their data here is, I would say, pretty set in stone, right? It's not something with a small sample size. And Cheaty Njokuani right now is not only has a 7-inch reach advantage, but he's also got a 4-inch height advantage. I love the size advantage there for Cheaty. And also, he lands over 4.5 strikes per minute and absorbs 2.5, where Elizeu Zaleski lands 4.3 and absorbs 3.4. So the differential there is definitely on Cheaty's side. So we're talking a size advantage and a striking advantage, just strictly based on ratios here. And not to mention, if you look at Elizeu Zaleski's history, he's lost to guys like, oh, I don't know, Randy Brown, who are also really tall and have long reaches. And lost to Randy Brown because Randy Brown was able to use his range and stay at distance. Elizeu actually went for a few takedowns and landed them in that fight, but still wasn't able to get the decision. And to further make us even more confident, or at least me more confident in Cheaty, is that he has a 74% takedown defense rate. So even if Elizeu goes for takedowns, I think it's going to take him a couple of attempts to actually land one, and I think Cheaty will already be ahead in points by then.
I like that pick a lot. So yeah, this is we both got Cheaty on this one. Yeah, and I think just Cheaty's gonna dominate exactly on the feet, and I'm not too worried about that takedown either.
Sounds good, man. Well, hopefully, while I give my next handicap here, that fire alarm expires. But in any case, I got one more pick by process of elimination. Jose actually has two. Jose's 2 1 weight remain. Just my 1 weight remains. My 1 weight on Saturday afternoon is going to bring us to what's currently listed for what I am seeing as the main event of the preliminaries. This is Waldo Cortez Acosta, and this is Waldo Cortez Acosta. I'm trying to get better at saying his name. Against Ryan Spann, actually, at this fight, I believe, is at light heavyweight. Let me double check that really quick. No, it's actually at heavyweight. Ryan Spann moving up to heavyweight. For some reason, I thought this might be a light heavyweight, but honestly, thinking about it, no way WCA could cut down to 205. So that's one thing, is I have a WCA in this fight, and that's honestly even further evidence to prove my point, in that WCA is going to be the bigger body here. He's the natural heavyweight, and Ryan Spann's the one moving up to heavyweight. Look, I think Waldo Cortez Acosta is a really good striker that can also wrestle when needed. And that's just huge to me. Ryan Spann is a good fighter. I get that he's got size and range, but his recent win against OSP was really not that impressive, if you ask me. OSP's kind of washed up. He couldn't beat Bogdan, couldn't beat Anthony Smith, couldn't beat Krylov. I'm just really not that impressed by Ryan Spann. I think he's borderline, not even the talent to be in the UFC. Like, he's like the PFL Bellator champion kind of caliber. Like, you know what I mean? I don't mean to send disrespect, but I just think Waldo Cortez Acosta is going to be better on the feet, and if he feels like he's in danger, he can land a couple takedowns. I mean, look at it's essentially exactly what he did against his previous dude who got cut, Robelas to Spain, who's now fighting in another organization. Like, he was the reason pretty much that they ended up cutting to Spain, because it's like, oh yeah, he got kind of wrecked by Waldo Cortez Acosta. So I expect that to be the thing. I mean, if he needs to land some takedowns, he'll be able to do what Ryan Spann only sports a 50% takedown defense. I'm just not that enthralled by Ryan Spann, and he's going to be, in my opinion, even though his frame, like height and reach, might match up, I just don't think he's going to be, like, when it comes to standing in the octagon, I think WCA is going to look like the bigger man. I think it's going to matter if a wrestling, grappling exchange occurs, and I still think he's going to be better on the feet as well. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, so bad news, that fire alarm is still going on. But that being said, I'm gonna try to keep this short. I'm actually gonna go with Ryan Spann on this one, and reason is just like, dude, when he's on. But like, and yes, he is a favorite. I thought it would have been a closer. I see he's minus 172, but yeah, like when he's on, he's on. He's a finisher. In WCA, like it's very unfortunate because he's done everything that he's supposed to do. Like he's beating the dudes in front of him, but you know what is it saying? Like like you mentioned, Despain isn't even in the UFC anymore. Andrei Arlovsky's not in the UFC anymore, and nor is Lucas Brzezicki. He's not. I don't even really recognize who that guy is. So, oh, he actually is still in the UFC. But other than that, there's Jared Vanderaa, Chase Sherman. So majority of the dudes he's beat but one, like, are still in the UFC. Like they're all like almost they've been cut and let go. So like, and he's like he's all right. Like he's doing fine. But I like the wins that Ryan Spann has more. And this is my one way. By the way, like just because it's the heavyweights, and so I am taking a little risk in this with going with Ryan Spann. Like you mentioned, I think WCA will try to wrestle Spann. But I think on the floor and when it comes to grappling, not too worried, especially when it comes to Ryan Spann, because out of his 22 wins, he has 13 that are won via submission. So even though WCA has never been submitted before, I do think Ryan Spann is going to be um, maybe one of the more legit potential threats to actually that can actually lock in a submission on him. And Ryan Spann also, like, and it really doesn't really matter, but Ryan Spann does have a 9-inch reach advantage over WCA, which I say doesn't really matter because WCA beat Robles Desplain, but Robles Desplain, but and he had a huge, like one of the longest reach advantages in the UFC. So like I'm just not too worried about the reach advantage, but when you have the power that Ryan Spann has, Ryan Spann does have like legit like KO power. So like even though he doesn't have as many wins in it, he does have legit KO power. So I'm in this one. I'm looking at as Ryan Spann, and ultimately I'm just taking him to win this and possibly be the first one to submit WCA. I'm not that confident though, so that is why he's my one weight.
Okay, so we got another disagreement. Then that'll be 2-2 agreements, disagreements. This one very confident, and one is the low confident. I got WCA, you got Ryan Spann, and we'll see what happens of those disagreements. But with that said, we just have Jose's 2 weight remaining with the alarm in tow.
Yes, unfortunately, I'm gonna need to wrap this up before this place burns down.
Right?
But so my 2 weight, this is the lightweight bout between Alex Hernandez and Kurt Holobaugh. And right now, Alex Hernandez, he is the betting excuse me, he is the betting favorite at minus 184, while Kurt Holobaugh is the betting underdog at plus 142. Alex Hernandez, like, dude, he's 32 years young, and he was a big prospect back in the day, and I've sided with him way too much, and he's just let me down time and time again over dudes that I feel like he definitely should have been. And he's also losing to some older dudes as well, like Damon Jackson, even though that was like a split decision. So Kurt Holobaugh being 38 doesn't really worry me. Alex Hernandez, he's always just like, I like he's an explosive guy, and I just think that like what really helped him kickstart off his career, like why he became such a quick prospect, was that knockout over Beneil Dariush. But that being said, like he got pretty much exposed by Donald Cerrone when they fought, and then since then, he's just been losing, and it's just a lot of it. He has been submitted, but a lot of it is just on the feet. He's always losing the exchanges mostly on the feet. Like that's where he gets beat up. Like he likes to talk he has like phenomenal boxing, but honestly, like just a lot of dudes have shown otherwise. And though Kurt Holobaugh, even though he out of his 21 wins, he's got 10 submissions. He does have 7 KOs/TKOs, and he's pretty versatile type of guy is the best way I'm trying to say. Sorry, this fire alarm is kind of distracting too. But he's a pretty well-rounded guy is pretty much what I'm trying to say. So even though he's not been in the UFC long, he has shown like a little bit of everything, and I just think that Alex Hernandez is going to probably try to take him down. But even though Carl this year has a 42% takedown defense, I truly think he has a better takedown defense than that. And best way to say it, I think he's going to win mostly on the feet and just outbox Alex Hernandez is the best way to say it. Would he knock him out? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm not gonna make a pick on that. I'm mostly just gonna say I got Kurt Holobaugh, and he's gonna win via decision, and it's mostly gonna come down to striking in his favor. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Nick? I know you don't have a weight on it, but any thoughts on it?
No, man, I'm just happy I don't have to hear that alarm, dude. Just if I'm not hearing that alarm, dude, I'm good, man. I'm sure me and the audience can agree on that, dude. Whew, that is rough. Um, I don't have any. No, I don't got nothing on this fight, man. This is just one to watch for me. Just one to watch for me. So that said, we'll complete the show there. That'll be all of our weights. Quick recap being that our lock of the week is going to be Chidi. Or sorry, Kevin Vallejos, actually. We did agree on Chidi, but Kevin Vallejos had a higher weight total. So 7 total confidence points on Kevin Vallejos. You might as well take Vallejos plus Chidi because I believe both those dudes are kind of big favorites as the good 2-leg parlay. And depending on who you like, the dog of the week is going to be Dolidze because that's my 5 weight. Otherwise, I think pretty much everyone else that was chosen is except Jose, I believe, Span is the dog. So it's pretty much which one of us two in terms of the dogs do you like. Otherwise, we don't really have an agreed upon dog of the week, but that will be the show. Make sure to tune in next Monday. As always, we'll be live around the 5:30 Central Time window to discuss the upcoming fights and, of course, to recap the current picks from tonight's show. So make sure to tune in. We'll have Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady. This will be an event out there in London, England. So be prepared. We're going to have 2 straight Saturdays of day fights coming up. Because as I mentioned, the prelims for this Saturday will begin at noon Central Time. And the prelims for the fight then the week after will be at 11 a.m. Central Time. So back-to-back daytime fights on Saturdays for the UFC. Make sure to tune in. That fight in the O2 Arena may not be a pay-per-view, but it has a lot of star power on it. So Jose and I are definitely going to come locked and loaded with some exciting picks and insights into that card. But until